Hello and welcome to this all diocese, all congregations webinar hosted by TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. This is one of our many free offerings that we make for the church throughout the year to help underscore practices about stewardship and generosity in your congregations as we do this work together. TENS walks alongside you in your ministry, and I want you to know that that's a really important part of our work, that we're here to support you as you need support. Let's talk today I'm still admitting people, and I love that. Let's talk today about year-round stewardship formation. And in particular, we're going to talk about how we separate the idea of stewardship and generosity and the annual campaign, right? Stewardship, we're going to talk about is a series of practices, and it doesn't just associate with the fundraising campaign or the fundraising work of our church. Stewardship is its own ministry, its own theology, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about those practices. We're also going to spend a lot of time talking about growing generous disciples. Um, a lot of our work in stewardship could be so much easier if we spent the time forming our congregation, normalizing the conversations about money and stuff and attachments to those things and the stress that comes around along with money and the joy that comes along with money. If we normalized talking about that in a healthy way, in our congregation when it comes time to talk about our budgets and it comes time to sharing our gifts, we'll have a much easier time. So we're going to talk some strategies about that. And then we're going to talk about some things you can do all year round, some things you can do now, some things that are easy to implement, some things that'll take a little bit more strategy. And we want to give you some options so that you can have lots of ways to implement year-round stewardship in your congregation. So, if stewardship isn't necessarily about your campaign, isn't necessarily about fundraising, what is stewardship? I hope that here at the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, we can shed some light on that question because we think it's about impact. We think it's about how we see our work in the world and how we say or remind ourselves that everything God has created has been given to us to steward, to use, to harness in order to accomplish God's work in the world. It's an easy way to imagine our journey of stewardship through our work together. If we remind ourselves that everything comes from God, that God gave us the power to steward and grow and transform those resources into ways that can serve the people of God and our congregations. So all of our resources go into that. Everything that is a noun is a resource that has been given to us to use. And that includes things like the things we've learned or experienced in our workplace. How can our church use our wisdom, our experience, our practical lives to accomplish its work? It's about our effort and our work product, right? Yes, it's about like needing to come to church to fix things, to clean things, to volunteer, to move things around. It's that kind of hands-on, shoulders into it, that sort of work. I imagine, I often like to say that 90% of church is moving tables and chairs around because so much of our work is about resetting the space and transforming it into something new. So that is a part of our work of stewardship. Of course, it's also about our lives and our life work. So it's about spending and saving our resources as well, not just the ones that we plan to steward and give to the church or to other charitable purposes, but overall, how are we spending our money? How are we saving our money? How are we investing our money? Those all have ways that can help the world or ways that can be less helpful to the world. And as faithful Christians, we look at those things. We imagine what our impact is because it goes beyond just our stewardship and just beyond our congregations, but moves into the world. Our wisdom, our teaching, what skills do we have that we want other people to be able to learn? Right? This is one of those things that when someone says to me, I really wish we had a class on this or a book study about that, or I wish whatever. I turn that question back around and say, is that a skill that you have that you'd be willing to teach us? Um, you know, Knitting groups, baking groups, they come out of these things. People have a skill and they want to share it, and then you can call people to church around this activity. Maybe there's a book or a topic that you are really good at and you want to be able to educate people about that. And it doesn't necessarily have to feel churchy in order to have build community within the church and to be used as something that we can use for growth and discipleship and maybe perhaps even inviting our neighbors into it. So imagine what skills or wisdom do you have to share? And our wisdom is also at play in how our congregations solve problems or work through issues or think about strategies and growth, right? So it's not just showing up at church and worshiping and leaving, but how do you help the church with some of its strategic goals, with its work in the community, with its outreach to neighbors? You can help think through problems that the church is having or see forward and head off problems that might be out there by sharing the wisdom you have learned in your life with the church. These are all things that we have been given to steward that we can turn into gifts. At TENS, we're trying to change the conversation from time, talent, and treasure, which is an old chestnut of a way to think about holistic giving, and we love it. We use it sometimes. But we're starting to think about resources, relationships, and responses as another framework for how we look at all of our gifts. And that focuses the relationship part of that is also one of those things that we can bring into our stewardship because at the end of the day, it is a relational conversation with people. We we help each other, encourage each other, nurture each other, and this is part of how we do this work in community. So imagine those strong relationships that we have with each other. If you ask many people, what do you love most about your church or why do you keep coming back there? They identify things like it's the people, it's the friendships I've met, it's the way people have supported each other. Those relationships are key in how we think about supporting our church and how we think about our church then acting out in the world. Your impact is as important as your giving. Your dollar does more than fund a budget. It creates and sustains ministry. And if we look at it that way, we don't think about our money just going into some pot from which the church pays its bills, but rather every dollar has a ministry purpose behind it. And we just move through our budgets and our treasury as we do that work in the world. Yes, that pays for our building and the people who work in our building so that we can serve our neighbors. And it's direct outreach and direct inreach. How do we take care of each other? So, throughout the year, one of the ways that we can encourage year-round stewardship or year-round awareness about our gifts and our giving is by reminding people always about the impact of their gifts. Throughout the year, please find ways to report on your successes, the challenges, the changes in your program. You can talk once a month, highlight a ministry or a ministry area and focus on it in your newsletter, in your gratitude, in your prayer life. We're holding up the choir this month. We're holding up the garden ministry. We're holding up our vestry. Whatever you want to do throughout the year, highlight your different ministry areas or your different church groups and bring them to the front. If you have more than 12 and it's going to take more than a year to get through, then do a couple a month. There's no shortage of how much we can talk about. You can't overdo gratitude and recognition. So find the ways to do that. One of the things that churches are learning from our nonprofit siblings is how to be better at translating our work from good news into measurable good news. And what I mean by that is that we provide some real metrics, some data around the kind of work that we do. When you get a annual report from a charity that you support with your gifts throughout the year. Maybe it's a homeless family charity, or maybe it's something environmental or something about healthcare or education. Often, what they tell you is how much work they were able to do with your donation, how much, uh, how many people they were able to serve, or particular impacts related to your gifts being translated into real work. We can do that in our church too. When we talk about things like our food ministries, we might also say, well, this is we didn't just run a food program, but we fed 1,000 people so far this year. And this is what a food box contains. And here's a story from a family talking about what a weekly box of food from our pantry has done for their food security or insecurity, right? So we can have these conversations about impact. And that's not just about outreach and our neighbors, it's also about our inreach. You can report on how many people come to your book club or your game night or other things that are important to your congregation, and report on those metrics as well, because those kinds of things help us understand what our giving does, not just to our outside neighbors, but to our family as well. So find some ways to incorporate metrics in those impact stories. Ask yourselves and maybe do some formation work, put these questions in your bulletin or your newsletter, asking people to reflect on their own giving and their own gifts. There are lots of spiritual gifts inventories out there, and I can suggest a couple in the follow-up materials that I'll be sending today. Um, I hope people identify what their gifts are and then share them with the church, because this will make for people who imagine their giving on a holistic level, not just how much how much are you giving and what kind of check can you write, but all the other ways that we give to our church and how we might be able to help the church accomplish God's purpose in the world. Let's also focus on that relationship piece and do some reporting and encouraging about that. We do this work without acknowledging how much of it happens in our church, how much we care for each other when we see that someone's not there for a couple of weeks, how we send them an email or telephone them and say, "Are you okay?" How we pray for people that we know are going through a struggle or a health situation or in need of our prayers some way. When we celebrate with people who are going through milestones or have moments in their lives that they want to call forward and celebrate, all of these things are things that churches just do really well. But let's highlight them and talk about the fact that this is one of our gifts. And let's encourage even more of it. You know, those I rely on Facebook every morning to remind me of how many of my friends have birthdays coming up this week because because I don't keep the kind of calendar that my parents kept with all those things written down. And so I look on Facebook, I'm like, oh, it's so and so's birthday, and I send them a little note. Well, it might seem silly. I mean, social media is, but then we realize that we have these ways to keep coming back to our relationships and to do those really simple things in church and with our friends and with our church family that remind us how we are all connected. So have a ministry of birthday cards or anniversary cards. Have a ministry where you celebrate people's birthdays publicly and acknowledge them and bless them, and talk about the ways that we're all connected. This helps us then remind ourselves that we have these gifts to share too. When we see the church doing it, we are then empowered to do it. And it helps us jog our memory on ways that we could engage that way. Generosity is something that is woven into the Christian story, but it's also something that we need to work on because there are plenty of reasons in the world that keep us away from our generosity. Certainly, languages in politics, the language of advertisers, the language of fear-based marketing, it all tells us not to be generous, to be insular, to take care of, to protect. And that keeps us from wanting to open those hands and minds and hearts as the gospel calls us to do. So find ways in church that remind us to practice our gratitude, do positive work in the world, and remind ourselves that everything that is generous comes from God and that that skill has been given to us and that seed has been planted in us. These kinds of things come with some daily habits. And so I have a couple of gratitude exercises that I want to share with you. Things that I've learned over the years that I've adopted from friends of mine who are wise and have done these practices. Because when we have a practice of gratitude, it opens our own heart to the ways in which we have been blessed and then reminds us that we also can be a blessing to others. So, simple things. You might do this already when you wake up or when you're going to sleep or when you are brushing your teeth. A lot of my best ideas happen while I'm brushing my teeth. I don't know why. But imagine, what are you grateful for today? What is happening that you want to call out? What happened to you at work? Or what was a positive experience you had with a friend or a phone call that really meant something to you? Or maybe it's listing out the things in your life that are going really well, and you want to remind yourself of that. So have a daily habit, sometime every day, that you might take those things up and lift them. You can also act this out. When you see something good in the world, express that to other people. My father is really good at this. He's also shameless and will talk to any person about anything. You have to sign to pull him back out of a store sometimes because he'll just keep going. But he'll walk right up to someone that has done something beautiful. Like if he sees somebody carry a bag of groceries to someone's car or help someone in some other situation, he'll walk up and say thank you. He'll try to shake their hand and learn their life story as well. But this is a really beautiful gift. It might be a little weird having somebody walk up to you, but once that having witnessed this so many times in my life, I see that exchange and it ends in smiles and good feelings. Well, imagine what that is like. That's his habit of gratitude and he's passed that on to someone else. Maybe we're all not so bold. I'm not because because I'm not. But things that we see in the world, we can thank other people for doing them or being there, Or when we see something good happen, we can comment on it. If not comment, then reflect. You can always do that. I have a friend who on Fridays at 4:30 puts aside everything else that he's done and brings up his laptop and his email, and he spends the last half hour of his day at work thanking colleagues or business relationships for the things that they have done to make things go well that week. It's really a beautiful practice because every once in a while he has this moment where he thanks people, he reminds them, and he reminds himself that he's not alone, that he couldn't do this without other people. And that's helpful for our own gratitude practice as well. So take some time, maybe develop a weekly habit of offering thanks or finding some way to recognize people or institutions for the things they've done for you. And finally, one of the most important gratitude exercises is accept other people's gratitude for you, their compliments, their thanks, their apologies, those moments that they want to interact with you on something meaningful. Um, Give that moment its weight, give that moment its space. That's part of being in relationship with each other. I know when somebody thanks us for often for the things that maybe we didn't even think were important or maybe we did think they were important, but we just did them because it was the right thing to do. And somebody says thank you for it, and then we say, no, no, it's okay. Oh, I would do it anyway. You do it for me. We see all these things that kind of negate the beautiful thing that they've just done, which is acknowledge that we were a part of their lives in that moment or whatever it was that we did. Let that wash over you and be grateful in that moment. Don't push it off. That kind of modesty doesn't help them with their gratitude practice or you with yours. It's okay to accept people's thanks. A couple of other mindset things that help us think year round about our gifts and how to share them. One thing that I have come to understand is that if we assume goodwill, that we can create that positive space into which whatever it is that we're doing, work or family or social or church or combinations therein, have an opportunity to be successful and have a loving situation or a loving formation around them. It's hard sometimes to assume goodwill because we bring in sort of our experience of being hurt or lessons learned or other things like that. It's hard to sometimes come back. And I'm not suggesting that we always be gullible or that we never be cautious about things. But in fact, if we assume that the other person, unless they've really proven otherwise, has the right thing in mind, wants the best thing for us, then we can help them and ourselves by assuming goodwill. Let's just assume that they want the best thing out of this situation. Forgive yourself too. That's a part of gratitude. Um, if I don't, I will hold on to some mistake that I've made, and it'll come up later in this cringy moment, right? And I don't, that's not good for anyone. Like, forgive yourself when you've made a mistake, find a way through it, accept the learning from it, apologize if you need to, and then move on, right? Forgiving yourself is a part of finding that goodwill and that way of being gracious in your life. Finally, I have a few ways to think about creating those random acts of generosity. I was influenced in the 80s by that bumper sticker, practice random acts of kindness. And I found that it was a really beautiful way of thinking about yourself and the world. And we do this in church already. Uh, we make food for each other, or we send a note, or we make a phone call when somebody needs our help. Maybe I've done this one before too. Buy coffee for the person behind me in line. Here's an extra $5. Well, it used to be $5. Now it's more. But here's some money for the person behind me. And whatever there is, it's on me today. These are just like little random things you can do that elevate people's awareness and kindness. If they also understand, if others also understand that the world is a good place and you've been able to influence it, they then can find their own way into that goodness. You may never know how it influences them, but you carry on that kindness and you move it forward. If you don't do these things by yourself because on your own, because maybe you're shy or maybe you have other ways of doing this, you can always join a team, right? And work for something that's doing, like work on a phone bank for a charity or join somebody's charity run or work on behalf of the church or a nonprofit in your neighborhood that's doing good work. When the church calls for volunteers to do something, join that team because then you can be part of something fun and wonderful. Support a cause, volunteer, not just at church, although the church is a great place to volunteer. There are lots of things. If that suits your schedule better, or your timing, or you've got kids and they need something that's kid friendly, find those opportunities in your town that need your hands and your ideas, and give of yourself. These inculcate and strengthen that generosity within you. I want to move from gratitude and generosity practices now into ways that we can create generosity, a calendar of generosity in our church, so that we can promote year-round awareness of the blessings and the gratitude. So I've got some advanced ideas, some intermediate ideas, and some beginner ideas of things that we can do right now to begin work on this. Uh, the year lends itself to maybe developing a theme about something that is important or something you want the church to focus on that will help us or help you create kind of a practice of gratitude and awareness of our generosity. And so this is one that TENS uses. If you get our newsletter and you look at the Year of Living Generously column in each of our newsletters, it follows these themes and gives us practical examples of things we could do in our church or in our lives to kind of go on this. So right now in May, it's rogation, right? So that celebration of rogation. And we are talking about how you might fix the world and what's your plan for that. And so if you ask these questions in your bulletin or in your newsletter or focus on this, it helps us to think, oh, wait, that's about stewardship? I thought stewardship was just about money. No, stewardship is about all of our gifts and how we share them with the world. So find some of these ways to create monthly themes. If you don't like these, figure out your own. And I've got some more ideas for you coming up. But these are ways to imagine how little prompts in your social media or in your bulletin or in your announcements can help people think through the year. For those of you who Ray asks how he gets on our newsletter mailing list, I will make sure that you get a link to our newsletter, but it's on our website too. Front page, join our newsletter. I'll send you a link, Ray, and everyone else. We want you all to get our newsletter. We only send one a month, and it's full of great ideas. For those of you who are really excited about developing a plan, we have a spreadsheet for you, which is full of activities and things you can do month by month that reflects the liturgical season, that talks about different ministry areas in your church. Now, I'm going to share a little bit of this, and I'm also going to say I realize that it's a heavy lift because there's a lot of stuff on here, and if you implemented it all at once, you might go a little crazy. Um, in as much as we're all a little crazy in church. But my invitation to you is to take a look and see if there is one thing you could adopt every month. And then next year you could add on more, and next year you could add on more. It's not an all-in-one, one and done kind of idea. But this idea was developed out of the Diocese of Olympia several years ago. And thank you, Aaron, for sending the newsletter link. Um, this was developed in the Diocese of Olympia, and it helps us imagine a month at a time in your congregation, and it looks at, if you see that left category, what are some of the spiritual practices that are important to our congregation in the month of December? Well, it actually goes through the year. So, what's our spirituality focus? What's our ministry that we're highlighting? What's a finance committee thing that we're thinking about? What's something that we're focusing on in our environmental ministry, our outreach ministry? What's a gratitude practice or ministry area that we're elevating this month? And what's an event that we're doing, or an adult ed, or a coffee hour, or something that we're doing to bolster that activity, right? So this helps you. This is how one church imagined it. You could create your own categories and your own activities that go along with it. In fact, you can fill out the spreadsheet with all of your own information. We give you a template. But the idea here is that you say, well, what do we want to focus on in December, at the beginning of the church year, for preparation and worship? Well, what does that mean about our spirituality? Well, this Advent is about preparation and thinking and anticipating and hoping. Well, what are some resources? And you could list out where we're going to need some volunteers for this. We're going to need to buy some of these things. What are the resources this is going to take? What are the ministry opportunities here? What can we do that is public facing, and what's the inward spiritual work that we're doing at the same time? I have a congregation in Sacramento that implemented this and they super loved it. They got really excited. They filled out every month and they're doing it. I Most congregations that I've talked to that use this use one or two things, and they've figured that out as their way forward. We're going to come back to this at the end and talk a little bit more about what's one thing you might think about doing in your congregation. But I wanted to give this idea, and you can download this from our website. It's all there, and it's a very comprehensive way to think about some year-round stewardship. But there are things that are a little easier to adopt, and I want to move on to those now too, because the liturgical calendar gives us these natural stewardship themes. Again, not about money, but about awareness of our gifts and our giving. And so if we take these um, seasonal moments to lift up a particular element of stewardship, generosity, and gratitude, abundance, we can keep that conversation going throughout the church year. TENS offers annually a set of seasonal reflections. They start in Advent and go all the way through Christ the King. And every time the color changes in church, there's another seasonal reflection that you can download and use. That's also in our monthly newsletter, but it's also in the package that you can just download from our website. And that gives people a way in to thinking about, well, in Advent, what's going on that I could pay attention to my gifts or my giving. What does Epiphany have to say about this? And so we imagine that as something that we um, do. So this is exciting, I think. And one way that is really easy for us to implement this. Aaron, you're like excellent in putting links into the chat. I appreciate you. Um, a congregation creates a culture of stewardship and gratitude through repeated practices. Storytelling is really important. The way that we, each of us, give our own testimony and develop our own talking points about how we give and how we support and why it matters to us. How the church can do some work on reporting its impact in your newsletter, in your announcements, in your social media. We had 50 volunteers show up. It was great. This is what we did, and this is the impact. We cleaned up, 180 bags full of trash from the park after last Saturday's event, and we went through and we had volunteers that did that. This is, a cleaner environment for our kids. We sent, 3 people to our local civic town council meeting, and they listened and observed and paid attention and brought back all of this learning to our congregation. What are the ways you can report your impact, both in big numbers and in the subtle ways? A congregation forms stewardship culture by thanking its volunteers. Everyone who gives of their time is giving something important of their life. And so take a moment to thank them, even if it's a little awkward and people don't want to be thanked, right? Thank them at the service. Thank them from the chancel announcements. Thank them in church. Write their names in the bulletin. If you can write a handwritten note, that's even better. Do little ways throughout the year to thank your volunteers. Invitation is also really important. Testimony and uh, people talking about their giving stories doesn't just have to happen during your pledge campaign, during your fall stewardship work. It can happen year round. It can happen every month in your newsletter. Have somebody write a 1 paragraph or 2 paragraph reflection on what they're grateful for at the church, or why they are members and love it so much, or things that they've learned from Sunday school or whatever, right? You can invite this and have people teach people how to give testimony about their own gratitude, their own journey of spirituality. We need to create a culture in which we always connect giving to the mission. And this is really important. When we talk about funding a budget, or when we talk about the deficit, when we talk about we need to give more because the church needs it, we're not telling people about the impact on God's world. We're talking about the impact on our budget. One of them is practical, necessary, perhaps, but not inspiring. The other is deeply motivational and hope vocational. And the reason that our church was founded in the first place, to serve God's people, to seek, to serve, to heal, to feed, to visit, to love our neighbor. Talk about that. Connect your giving to that. You give your time, you give your resources, you give your wisdom, you give your experience into the world and through the church to enact God's saving work in God's kingdom in the world. We create culture when we teach about generosity, not the kind of generosity that says, sacrifice and give till it hurts, but the kind of generosity that says, you've been given everything, and it's a joy to be able to find ways to share that. It doesn't mean that we have to give away everything. I mean, that's reckless, right? We don't want to encourage that. What we do want is for people to understand how they have benefited so much, how they've been blessed, that they are encouraged to give. Talk about this from the pulpit, from the newsletter, from the pastoral letters, from our conversations outside your fundraising season. Normalize the conversation about money. When I hear people say, I don't like to talk about money in church, or we shouldn't talk about money in church, or why are we always talking about money in church? I remind myself and others that Jesus talked about money a whole lot. In fact, 40% of Jesus' ministry, 16 of the 40 parables are about money, stuff, things, our attachments to them. It comes up a lot in Jesus' ministry, either as a metaphor or as a teaching. Why is this? Because money is all around our culture. In the first century and in the 21st century, you couldn't escape it and you can't escape it. So if we hide it, if we don't talk about it, if we only talk about it in apologetic ways or in shameful ways, then we're missing the point. We're missing the ability to help people understand the now that they feel about money and the possibility that they could share those resources with the church and make the world a better place. So, talk about this outside the pledge season in ways that actually teach generosity. I've got four things that you could do this year that will help you um, start and continue the conversation about generosity. Think about a book study or an adult ed series, a coffee hour every once in a while on generosity, not on giving, not on the budget, not on how much we need, but theologically on generosity. God created everything. God tells us to steward it and take care of it. There are so many scriptural places you could go with this. And if you download the TENS Stewardship Bible Study tool from our resource library, it has like 20 different scriptures that you could do some Bible study on that all remind us that giving is a part of that life together. Conduct a little ministry review. And I suggest that this is a mid-year thing, but it could be whenever you have time to get it done. But remember the work we did at our annual meeting to pass a budget and the goals that we set and the reports that we made. And we said we were going to like work on this ministry or hire this position or strengthen this or recruit more people to the book club or whatever it was, right? Give a little report on that. This is about transparent and accountable reporting, and that will help people remember, oh, yeah, we all talked about that. We said we were going to do that. Let's make sure that we are doing that. And and it's a moment then for us to say, are we on track? Can we do something different? And if we're not on track, it brings everybody into the conversation, right? Well, what do we do to get back on track? This is a really helpful thing for our congregations to engage every once in a while. It doesn't have to be a recreation of your annual meeting. It can even just be a really well-written letter or article in your newsletter. Think about doing a little mid-year review. Along with that, please send out quarterly or at least semi-annual reminders of where people are with their giving. If you run a pledge campaign in your congregation, let people know how many gifts of theirs you've received, how they've been counted, so that people can do that math and see if they're on track, if something's missing, something's been miscategorized. You don't want people to be surprised at the end of the year. I already said this one, but I'm reminding you. Preach and teach about generosity outside pledge season. Take a look at those seasonal reflections that TENS gives you. If you look at the newsletter every month, I have a two-paragraph snippet for every gospel of the upcoming month Sunday. You can take a look at that as a place to start. If you're really excited about this work, I commend this book, which I'll also put in our training. This is David Mosser's The Stewardship Companion, and it walks through every Sunday of the 3-year liturgical cycle and gives you a possible stewardship sermon for it. It's a really great book. As you see, I have it right on my bookshelf next to my desk because it's a thoughtful thing to help you think about the lectionary and some natural ways to talk about awareness, giving, generosity, abundance. And finally, we talked about this, incorporate storytelling often in your congregation. At least once a month, have somebody stand up and talk about why they love the church and what they're doing there, things that they support. Give them a prompt or a script or help them through that so that it doesn't go on for 10 minutes, but they can kind of synthesize their thoughts. If they're not public speakers, they can write it and post it to your newsletter. If they like it, the idea, they can record it on their phone and upload it to your website or to your social media. Have a little, here's my 30-second moment of gratitude for the church. There's so many ways that we can do storytelling. And the goal is simple there. Keep stewardship alive when no one's asking for money, because it reminds us that this isn't just about money. If you're using TENS resources this year, and I hope that you are, you'll have some scripts for testimonies, how you teach people storytelling, and some possible prompts you could use. You have those seasonal reflections I keep talking about. We also give you two curricula. One of them is a 5-week session around the theme, which this year is Plenty Good Room, and I'll be going into that in a minute. But we give you a small group, 5-week scripture-based study that you could run on a Wednesday night or on a Saturday afternoon or as a Sunday coffee hour or adult ed block. It's a great way to think about generosity and abundance. And we also give you a series of family and youth resources that can be run, and they're like things you can do at home, little art projects or little thinking round table conversations to have as a family about generosity. None of these are heavy sells and they don't end with an ask and they don't end with a pledge form or a commitment. It's not about money, it's about awareness. So take some opportunities to use those tools as well and round out the theology and the formation you do around gratitude and generosity. We who are leading this work in the church model the shift from money and campaign to lifestyle and attitude and moment of grace. By focusing on formation, we'll model this shift for our members. It's not about how do we get more money and how do we recruit more people and how do we. Instead, it is how do we become the kind of community where we're recognized, blessed, and connected to the ministry in our community. How do we understand that as people of this congregation, as people of God, as people of faith? Help people understand that, and it unlocks their generosity year round, not just in the fall when we do our fundraising. So back to that spreadsheet, back to that idea of things you could implement. It could be the spreadsheet, it could be a book study, it could be an adult ed curriculum, it could be this task right here, where you ask someone, what brings you joy? Where do you feel God inviting you to share? What makes you feel energy or energized? And listen, just listen. It doesn't end with an ask. It doesn't end with a, well, then you should. It just ends. It just ends with, thank you. That was beautiful. Uh, Ask those questions. Find some ways to engage people about their spirituality and their generosity. Stewardship practice is practice. It doesn't come naturally to us, even though it's all around us. We still forget that God created everything and led us into a world of abundance. We still try to find ways that we are scarce and afraid when God says, be large and know that it's all there and that you're going to be taken care of and that there is more than enough. We're told by every place in our society there isn't enough. But in church, we're reminded that we have a different economy, that there is enough, that God has created it all. It's all within us, and it's all within our capacity to transform that into something that can heal and seek and serve and feed and visit and love our neighbor. That's the practice of year-round stewardship. Stewardship begins when we recognize that everything is a gift. And it deepens when we have that conversation with others about how they can share their gift, or when we teach that skill of abundance and generosity and gratitude. And it becomes a culture when we learn to say, God is here, God is in our work, God is in you, God is in your work. How can we bless the world? That's our job. How do we do that work? I want to end by reminding you of our theme, and I'm going to pull us back into our group. So don't think you're done yet, because we still have a half an hour to chat, where we're going to talk about questions and find out how you might want to implement some of these things. But before that, I want to share with you this year's theme for our stewardship campaign. It's Plenty Good Room, and it's based on a spiritual. Maybe you've sung it, maybe you've heard it. It's a beautiful idea that there's always more space than we think there is, always room for invitation. We can just set another place at the table. We can build a bigger table if we need to. That's God's economy in which no one is turned away, that there is always plenty good room. And that's a spiritual belief about our own giving. There's room enough, there's ability enough. If we want to do this work, it's here for us, and we just have to find the way. This is a statement of abundance, and it's a testimony how we provide to our friends and neighbors. So take a look at it this year. I hope that it matches your needs and tries to speak with where we are as a people, as Christians in the world, in a world that is really weird right now and giving us lots of challenges, finding out how to make space for each other and adopt generosity practices feels like a good thing for 2026. And we hope you agree. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, pull us back into our big room, and now talk a little bit about um, things you might, questions you might have about year-round stewardship and formation, and questions you might have about how to implement. Or maybe you want to be bold and say one thing that you are already doing or plan on doing. I'd love to hear from you. Somebody's got to be first. Somebody has an idea. I'm sure of it.
I can start.
Thank you. Look at you.
I really appreciate you breaking it down into bite-sized pieces for a church like ours in Cincinnati that's just kind of starting on this journey and making it not seem overwhelming. And so I very much appreciate that. And while you were presenting, I jotted down about six different ideas around how we could take some of your suggestions and plow it into what we are already doing, but just maybe do a little shift. So thank you for that.
Thanks for saying that too, Janice. Nothing is new here. You're already doing a lot of this work. A lot of it's about reframing. It's understanding when we say, oh, I just don't know how to like help the church raise more money or whatever, right? But it's these things that we're already doing in church that make it easy for us to do that. And if we just reframe that conversation, um, we can do that. We can help people. Um, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. My clock is very noisy. Barb typed into the chat, will there be a copy of the presentation sent out? Yep. I'll send out an email. It might happen today or it might not get out until Monday, but there will be an email sent to everyone who registered with a recording and a slide deck. Thanks, Barb. Hi, Cindy. I see your hand up.
Hi. Um, my church finds itself in a strange situation. We lost our rector mid-February, and I am the senior warden. And this church has never done anything but the 6 weeks in the fall for their annual campaign. And so I have started a mission for year-round stewardship. And we did very well. I was the stewardship person in the fall. And we did much better than we ever did because we followed the TENS program. Thank you very much for all your resources. And but now I'm working on having a capital campaign this summer because this is a living historic church and it needs help. And I have found the most valuable thing, and maybe the rest of you can take this away, is to go face to face, not a letter, not a phone call, not an email, and invite people to help me with a skill that I don't have. And I have had huge response to that, and also resources for the various people that need to do the activities for the church, stepping up and giving the church discounts that I didn't even ask for. So invitation, I think, is the biggest thing, and that's all I wanted to say.
Well, you said a lot there because invitation is the heart of connecting, right? It's the heart of relationship. And I think that that's a really important uh, it's a really important attribute that you call out. When you invite someone to help you accomplish something, you unlock their creativity, their ideas, perhaps even their support and buy-in to your idea, right? Because what you didn't do was just come right at them with a direct ask. What you said was, I'm trying to accomplish this thing, and will you help me with a skill? Will you help me with the overall goal? That allows people to believe the whole thing that you're trying to talk about and then find the best way for them to connect with it. It could be a gift. It could also be, as you say, something you weren't expecting, a discount that they can offer you, or a skill that they have that you didn't even think to ask for, or something like that. When we invite and really make that an authentic invitation, not one of those bogus invitations that leads right to the thing that we're trying to lead them to, but actually opens them up. We're trying to do this work as a community. This is what it means for the people who are here or the people who are near us. And what ideas do you have? You unlock lots of creativity and generosity in that. So you've got the right approach, totally. And I love that you're doing that. Keep that up and then teach it Teach it to other churches, teach it to us, teach it to your members, because invitation is the way to keep things going. You are on a roll. Thank you. Other Cindy.
Thank you. Um, I'm in just down the road a piece from you and in Bakersfield.
All right.
And and our church has about an ASA of about 70. Um, and there's a lot packed into what you described here. I've been the stewardship chair, but really going from a financial sense, the pledge campaign sense of it. What would be a realistic um, number of people to be on the team to do this year round, and in addition to the pledge drive part of things? What would who do I need to recruit?
Good question. And I love that. I love that that is your question here. Um, I think um I think rather than a number, like what's the number of people I need on my team, thinking about the activities that you want to do. Well, two ways to think about it. First, if you have an idea of the activities you want to do, you'll have then an idea of how many people it's going to need. So if you need a small group facilitator, maybe you have an event in mind and you need someone to help you with that. Um, that sort of work is really important. If you're doing any kind of like canvassing where you want to reach everyone, then you need an appropriate number of people to be able to manage those 70 people in your church, right? You can't have one person make 70 phone calls. You might need seven people to make 10 phone calls. So think about that kind of work or that sort of idea. I think what you want, and I'll share with you, I'll share with everyone when I send out the materials, a resource on recruiting a stewardship team that's about more than people who are there to raise money, but to do that formation piece. And you want to think through who are people in our congregation who have that kind of credibility that people will listen to them when they speak. They might not be on vestry, they might have served a long time ago, but they have that kind of gravitas in your church. That's someone I might recruit on a committee. You might want someone who has, maybe you've identified that you want to do a lot of work in the communication, like someone who can help you with your newsletter and telling these stories and recruiting storytellers. So maybe you talk to someone who works in communications or has that kind of skill set where they can get excited about that and lead that kind of a ministry. That's a person I would invite. I would also invite that person who um, has real follow through, which isn't to say that, we're flaky in church or anything, but you want the volunteer who can do what they say they're going to do and be able to commit to that, because stewardship is a ministry. It isn't just a campaign. It's not just something that we take for granted. It takes real work and it takes real vocation. Finally, I would say you want to look at people who get that it is about more than money, that it's about teaching. And I think that, I mean, you saw that as a through line through this presentation. We need to help our churches remember that this is vocational work. This is about stewardship theology. It's not just about a goal to accomplish. The finance committee gives us something that we need to do, and the vestry is expecting us to raise money. No, stewardship committees have a role in playing a part in that formation, that kind of work. So identify those skills and identify your plan. And if you want to have a chat about that, give me a call or find a email for me, and I will davey@tens.org, and I will happily engage more with you on that. But find the way to make your plan and then recruit the right people. You're really onto something here by taking little bite-sized pieces of it and figuring out what you can do. So I hope that answers your question. If there's more I can do, let me know. Thanks, Cindy. Barb, I think. Oh, Carol, you have your Plenty Good Room button. I love it.
Well, we have a shared ministry, so we have two churches working together with our priest in charge. We've never done year-round stewardship. It's been a traditional. So this has been a real hard think for us to figure out how this is just going to get old so quick. Um, but we're also very visual. So we wanted to do the same thing in both parishes. And we looked at the TENS logo and decided it resembled a table with chairs on it.
It does.
So, so we have placemats. Each church has a placemat, and this is our plate that says "Plenty Good Room." So,
Ah,
so we have a place set with it's just paper, it's just cardstock, and these are just being images for silverware to put with it. So, and then there's a glass that has some of the bookmark message type things. So the intent is that every month we put this someplace different. We move the message so that people notice it in different places. We put it on one of the tables. And each church has different layouts. So we have different places to put it. And the hardest one is I put it on like the coffee table and somebody moved it, put it back where it was the first time. So they see it one place and they think that's where it should always be. And then when you move it, they put it back where it was. So now I actually have it in the sanctuary on the table where the offering plates are.
wow, I
And
love it.
then we'll move it again. It's just really kind of a sublime way of getting that visual out to people. I don't think they're really getting much of the other messages that we need to um, really share. And it's really hard getting it across. We're trying um, to put out some of those TENS little blurbs, which are just incredibly easy to just pull those out. And those seasonal reflections, our intent is on Pentecost, then we'll be changing after Pentecost Sunday to that season after Pentecost. And it's also been a learning opportunity for the people on the committee to understand what the liturgical seasons are, because not everybody's as familiar with those as we think they are.
Yeah.
And we just pull a paragraph out of each of those seasonal reflections, and it's a work in progress. It's definitely a work in progress. And there's a lot of key helpful hints that I think that you've put out here to help us too.
Well, Carol, thank you. I, I love, first of all, I love seeing how people take what we do and adapt it and use it in their congregation, because that's why we do this, right? We give some ideas and we hope that you run off with it. I really appreciate the way that you are creating multiple avenues uh, to get the message across. This guerrilla marketing that you're doing with the movable placemat, and the fact that people now have gotten used to it one place. You know, if you do it twice in the Episcopal Church, it's a tradition. So, so we have to keep them on their toes. Um, so I really appreciate that. And then you also have, so that appeals to some people, right? Then the intellectual or the reflective piece. That appeals to some people, right? One size does not fit all in getting messages across. And so finding the ways that you have to incorporate it at different levels through different times and different ways is the way to do this. If we only pick one approach and hope for the best, that then we're missing out on people who learn or observe differently. And that misses some people who just won't then get the message, right? So finding lots of ways to do it is really important. And I really applaud you for what you're doing. That's great. Which are your congregations?
Grace Mansfield and St. Matthew's Ashland in Ohio.
Yeah. Wow. Well, a yoked congregation like that can be beautiful as well to share, to do some cross work on how you each understand your roles and abundance and I appreciate that. When you share space and ideas and staff and concept and people, you're already way down the road of sharing other kinds of resources with the world. So that's a good ministry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray, I see that you are trying to raise your hand, but can't. So just speak. Come off mute. You're on mute right now. So if you there you go.
Okay. So, Davey, you're probably tired of hearing me. This is the third one I'm on. I'm going to ask the same question.
Okay.
Very small congregation.
Mhm.
As an example, I am the discipleship committee. I am the stewardship committee. I am on the vestry. I'm a greeter, and everybody in the congregation does multiple jobs. So again, it's difficult to try and find anybody to try and take on another job. So, you have any ideas?
Well, when you're in a very small congregation like you state, and everybody's wearing multiple hats, you're all doing the work, right? I think the ways often often when we look at ministry work in church, we think about these silos. Like I'm a greeter, I'm on the flower committee, I'm on the vestry, and we see them as each separate roles, right? But if we're only one person and we're doing multiple roles and there are lots of us engaged in that, there are ways to find some economies of scale where we combine that work together. And imagine how your role as greeter is actually one of stewardship and welcome and invitation. So you're meeting people, you're talking with people, you're checking in with the regulars who you hand them a bulletin and you're paying attention to what gifts do they have to share or what questions do they have? Maybe you're learning something. Maybe you incorporate some questions and not just good morning and here's a bulletin or where would you like to sit, but maybe you're also asking some other questions that discern what they're grateful for or how they're doing this week or where they'd like to connect. So try to find some ways that you don't feel like you have to completely take off one hat and put on another in order to accomplish that work. Because when we are all overloaded in small congregations, uh, part of our part of our exhaustion comes from the duplication of effort. And so if we can find ways to streamline that, I thought you might be on this conversation, Ray, and so I thought a bit more deeply about what my answer could be. So thank you for making me sharpen my own work. Um, so that those are some ideas that I would have, Ray. At the end of the day, we can only do the work that we can, and finding out what's essential uh, and matched up with the number of people that we have is one of those really hard congregation conversations that congregations that are smaller or getting smaller need to begin to have every once in a while. Can we sustain this level with this many people? Just because we used to do it this way, can we continue doing it that way? If not, which things do we begin to combine? or let go of or reimagine in a different way so that they take fewer resources? What are some things that we're doing? Because what's unsustainable is trying to maintain big church ministry when we are smaller than we used to be. And if that's in fact the case, having those beautiful and honest conversations about where are we feeling exhausted? What would we be happy to give up and let go of so that we can focus on the things that are essential to us, which might be your invitation and your growth strategy, or your hospitality, whatever it is that you identify as your charism or as your main point that you want to get across, spend energies that way and let go of the things that are just being done because they're on a list of things that have always been done. So those are two ideas that I have, and I send you again with my blessings and help. Stewardship isn't just about, and I hope you're getting this point, not just about raising money, it's about raising congregations and how we do that work. So blessings on you and your congregation.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ray. Kathleen, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I actually had a question for Ray. Uh,
Okay.
and I don't want to assume anything about your congregation. I obviously don't know where you are or what your situation is, but are you able to have a youth group at all? Because one of the things that's been really useful in our church, and I'm at St. Martin's Episcopal in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we have a dynamic and growing parish, and it's growing in young families. And I think one of the reasons is because our priest, Father Josh Bowen, has really made a point of we've had a teenager serving on our vestry. I am the head of the ushers. I have several ushers who are young teenagers. We have a thing where every season we have to memorize a verse from the Bible that we use for, our giving before we're doing our offertory plate. We have an offertory sentence and the kids really get into competing over who gets to go up and recite that. And
I,
so
I,
it's in a lot of ways a form of stewardship by using people that we wouldn't normally expect in roles. You don't have to be an adult in our church to find a role that you need to be serving. And for the teenagers, it's really helpful because they can use that in their applications and their essays for college. It's the volunteer work that's so valued by educational universities, that kind of thing. So, I don't know if you have the luxury of having families, but if you do, don't just look at the adults, look at the kids and see how you can get
I,
them involved
I
in those.
wish, I wish that we could do that. I mean, we have two kids in our congregation. I'm 75, and I'm probably the average age of the people in the congregation.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
so I
I
mean,
see that problem. I'm sorry, but I just
yeah,
wondered, is there any other, Boy Scout troop, anything that you can reach
we do
out
have a Boy Scout troop that uses our facility, but there's nobody from our church that's in the Boy Scout troop because there's
to?
just nobody.
Yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of things that we would love to do,
yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, I think that I'm a relatively spry 75-year-old, but the number of people that come to church and walk
Lots will
with
do that to you,
walkers and
right?
stuff like that is surprising. So,
And I'm
uh,
sorry, I didn't mean to presume anything at
no,
all.
no, I understand that, and I mean, when we do have a kid in the church, we make a big deal about it. Look, there's a kid here.
That's
So,
great.
but
You know,
yeah, I mean, and I also happen to be in Western North Carolina, where we're still reeling from the hurricane.
yeah, y'all are
So,
still
I mean,
rebuilding.
that
We're
is,
'Cause I'm in Charlotte. We worked a lot with folks over there. We're actually in Belmont, North Carolina, which is in the Diocese of Western North Carolina, but I still go to Charlotte for my church. So where are you in Western NC?
I'm in Spruce Pine.
Oh, lovely. Beautiful place. I'm so sorry that I don't have any other ideas for you.
And
But I'm glad to
I
hear that
think I
you're
went
recovering because you guys really went through it.
when I was in Charlotte, when I was living in Charlotte, I used to attend your church occasionally.
Oh, beautiful. I love this natural connection that we have. So I
It
want
was a
to
great church, by the way. I mean, I was amazed. If it is the same church,
great.
it's gigantic. I mean, there are lots of kids. They actually have 4 or 5 priests there during
No, you're
Sunday.
thinking of Christchurch. But
Oh, that's right. I'm
we're a
sorry.
much smaller
Okay.
church, but we are
Yeah.
growing. And one of the weird things that's happening for us is our first service, which used to be the sort of sparsely attended, the old folks one, is now almost bigger than our main service because of families coming with little kids. I mean, it's
Right.
just amazing. It's our priest has done such a great job of making it dynamic for families and involving families that we see it in our parochial report for sure.
That's beautiful. Thank you both for that witness. Ray, I want to follow up on Kathleen's advice to you about kids, teens, maybe if you don't have them specifically. Scouting, they do have community hours that they need to fulfill. And obviously, that might not be a liturgical role that you would involve them in, but are there other things that your church needs that could use scouts to, volunteer, to do some great things? That's also true of a lot of high schools these days where they have community hours for their seniors to go out and do something. Churches can provide that work and help,
That's a
students.
very good idea. And because obviously we do have things that we have to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that
the
where kids come, their parents sometimes come, and then, who knows? Who knows what could happen once you open those doors and ask and invite those folks in. Great connections here. I love it, friends. Beautiful stuff. And this is the stuff of year-round stewardship, right? In none of this are we talking about the fundraising campaign, and we're talking about all the ways that we support each other in ministry. This is my kind of conversation. We've got a little time left. Are there any more questions or ideas, something you're doing in your congregation that you like to float, or get some advice on, or talk to others about? Well, I really appreciate you showing up on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon and being a part of this. Um, this is beautiful work at TENS, and it's my favorite thing that we do, connecting with you all. And I learn every time we have a webinar. It's something for me to then incorporate and share with other churches. And so I really thank you for contributing, for your ideas. I love seeing how you're taking our stuff and making it your own. And if there are any ways that TENS can help you implement great campaigns this year or improve your connection and your abundance and generosity training, let us know. We take the summer off of webinars because uh, I have learned over the years that people don't come to webinars in June and July. But we will be back in August at the end to do our Ready for the Fall Best Practices webinar. So that's August 29th, 9 a.m. Pacific. If you're not already signed up, look on our website at tens.org/webinars and find your way to join that conversation. This year, we're doing some best practices, but we're really talking about how to be very pastoral, since that's a lot of the work that we're encountering. In fact, the theme is Don't Panic, Be a Pastor. And that applies to all of us, whether we are wearing a collar or not. our folks need some other gifts from our stewardship work this year. So let's help do that and give that to them. So August 29th, Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific, come hang out with us and sign up for the webinar. Anything else I can do, you can always reach out to me at davey@tens.org. I'm happy to talk about how you're implementing, questions you might have. Cindy from Cincinnati, as you're talking about your capital campaign, if you want some connection with TENS about how to do that and think about that work, connect with me. I'd love to chat with you more about all of that. Thank you, friends. Really appreciate you. You'll be getting an email from me with videos and slide decks real soon.
Thank you, Davey.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Aaron.
you.
Thanks for typing so many things into the chat and keeping us
I'm just being
on
the
track.
helpful Canadian.
You are a helpful Canadian, our favorite kind.
All right. Take
Thanks,
care.
friends. Be well.
Bye.